Tonight in the NBA, Kevin Durant returns. The Warriors and Bulls lose their third straight games each, and the Heat extend their lead at the top of the Eastern Conference. How does all of this impact the playoff race in each conference? All of that and more at the rest of Thursday night's action coming up next.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On NBA, everybody. I'm Wes Goldberg here with Tony East. However you may be listening on YouTube, Odyssey, or wherever you get your podcasts, thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. How's it going, Tony?
Pretty good. Fun night in the league. A lot of close games. Kevin Durant is back. All the cool stuff that I like to watch happen all in the same night.
Yeah, a lot going on. Let's just jump right in. Let's start in Dallas, where Luka Doncic scored 41 points, and the Mavericks beat the Warriors for the second time in 5 days, winning 122 to 113. The Warriors never led, and Steph Curry was held scoreless the entire fourth quarter. Klay Thompson was back after 2 games that he missed with an illness, but it was a rough night for him. 6 of 17 shooting, including a few missed shots that were just way off. Still, the Warriors rallied late. They tied the game at 104 with 6 minutes to go, but Spencer Dinwiddie hits a floater, and the Mavericks hold the Warriors off. The Mavericks have now won 3 straight, but I think the big story here is that the Warriors have now dropped 3 straight, and they're just a half-game lead now over the Warriors for the number 2 seed in the West. Tony, first of all, what did you think about the end of this game, and are you concerned about the Warriors?
Yeah, it was a fascinating game. There was a little second there where I thought we were about to be talking way different about this game. Moses Moody scored 13 straight for Golden State to get it tied up, but Dinwiddie was going shot for shot with him in the fourth quarter. How did this game where Luka scores 41 and Klay comes back become Spencer Dinwiddie versus Moses Moody? I have no idea, but that's where we are. A little concerned for the Warriors. You know, if Steph doesn't have it, they're at the point with, in my notes, I just put they need Draymond back so bad. Like they just don't have enough a lot of nights, and the West is really good, and they're certainly at a rocky spot right now. So, Steph only, air quotes, because he's a stud, but he had 21 and 9, and they need more from him to win against the top of the West right now, and they didn't get it. They got decent game from Jordan Poole. Like I said, Moody had 13 in a row, but in general, not enough to beat the top of the league, especially because their defense is not very good without Draymond Green. So, yeah, a little bit of concern. I still think they're pretty good, but not necessarily the really good level that they were at earlier in the season.
Yeah, obviously the Draymond thing is the biggest question. You look at their on-off splits. With Draymond, defense is awesome. Without Draymond, not so awesome. And it's pretty simple with that, but it doesn't sound good. Like this stuff around Draymond Green, the back injury, it's bothering his legs now. He was on the broadcast after the All-Star game. He was like, "Yeah, I'm like hoping like 4 to 5 weeks or something like that." And I was like, "There's no timetable for this guy. There's not a lot of time left in the season." And I do think that where the Warriors end up in the standings, like what seed they have in the Western Conference, is going to be a really big deal because there's some tough matchups out there in the West for the Warriors, especially with teams with size, whether it's Denver, who are coming on strong, and now we got reports that Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. can come back. Obviously you've got like Rudy Gobert and the Jazz, Memphis and everything that they're able to do in the paint. Like this is the Warriors' biggest problem is size with or without Draymond, and there's some teams out there that could be a tough matchup for them. And their depth hasn't been nearly as good as it was to start the season either, right? And you just look like over this 3-game losing streak for them, Karl Anthony Towns just taking it to literally everybody on that defense. Tonight, Luka Doncic taking it to literally everybody on that defense. And I know that Draymond is supposed to help when he comes back, but again, we don't really know what he looks like when he does come back. So my level of concern is actually pretty high for the Warriors. If the goal is championship or bust, which the Warriors would tell you it is, yeah, my concern level is pretty high, especially considering that they only have a half-game lead on Memphis now, and it's not like we were talking about like coming out of the break. Hey, the Suns lost Chris Paul. Can the Warriors catch them? Forget about that. That's not even a thing now. It's can the Grizzlies catch the Warriors? Can the Jazz, who have been hot lately, catch the Warriors? Like we could be looking at this in a couple weeks, Tony, and be like, oh my God, how did the Warriors drop to 4th in the Eastern Conference, staring down a 4-5 seed in the first round? Like this is that's a realistic option here.
Yeah, and with no disrespect to the Clippers or the Timberwolves, like the drop between Denver at 6 and those two teams at 7, 8 in the play-in is really huge, right? Like getting 2 and 1 in the West is a huge deal this year. It's a huge deal. So they really need to hold on to that spot if they want to have that easy breezy first round. Maybe Draymond comes back right before that. They can work him in a little easier with an easier first round. Like this stuff matters a lot to them, and they are not playing very well at a very pivotal time in their season.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to Brooklyn, where the shorthanded Heat rallied from 17 back to beat the Nets 113 to 107. They were playing without Jimmy Butler, PJ Tucker, Kyle Lowry, but Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero took over, with Hero scoring 27 points. Bam finished with 30 points, 11 rebounds, and 6 assists.
Wow.
But the big story here is Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant made his return and scored 31 points in his first game since January 15th. After the game, Durant said that he felt great. He looked great, Tony. The Heat, they extended their lead for the number 1 spot in the East to 2.5 games. So a few interesting things from this game. But again, the headline to me here is Durant, who looked awesome. How does his return impact the race in the Eastern Conference, do you think?
Yeah, Durant, like every time he messes up his MCL, he comes back stronger. Like there's a chance he's 40 and tears his MCL and then comes back and is the best player in the NBA at any age. It's crazy how he is able to do this, and it means a lot for the Nets. Yeah, right. It means a lot for the Nets who just, I mean, they have talent on their team now that they added some depth in the Harden trade and got Dragic in the door. But, watching the games they were just playing where no KD, no Simmons, no Kyrie, they didn't look very good. I mean, there's not a lot of ways to slice it up besides they just didn't look very good. So getting Durant back makes them a threat. I mean, they could even keep up with a Heat team that obviously was missing their stars as well, but that's not a team they got beat by the Raptors pretty handily a few nights ago. Like, they can't keep up with teams without their stars. So to be able to be in this game and have KD just ho-hum give you 31 in his first game back is a very promising sign for them. And, obviously the East race is weird for them being in 8th. And having a part-time player, but I think they can catch Toronto. Maybe they can catch Cleveland, who's been slipping recently. So having Durant back should allow them to make some noise in that realm of the East.
Yeah, KD was the hands down favorite for MVP before he got hurt in January, right? And then he comes back and is just right back at this MVP level, just hanging 30 on a really good Heat defense. Like, I know they were without Jimmy Butler, without PJ Tucker, without Kyle Lowry, which are arguably their 3. Well, Bam Adebayo is probably their best defender, but 3 of their top 4 defenders. But still, like, the Heat are a defensive-minded team, and Durant getting 31 coming back from this is not an easy thing to do, and he did it. He did miss a couple of shots late in this game that maybe could have tilted the game towards the Nets. But still, just the fact, like you said, the fact that he's playing at an MVP level right after coming back from this injury is just sort of bananas, honestly. We should talk about the Heat a little bit. They're really good. They keep winning. They don't really need their best players to win games. They showed that earlier in the season. They showed it just now. And they've got Victor Oladipo coming back Monday, according to the Athletics' Shams Charania. That could be a big deal, too. We've got players coming back in the East, Tony, and I don't know how Oladipo doesn't shake up things the way that Kevin Durant does, but it's just one other player for the Heat to have.
Yeah, I mean, like, first of all, Spo could turn you and I into useful role players, but, Vic...
Maybe you.
As someone who covered Vic for a long time, like, I mean, he is just a natural defensive fit for what the Heat already do, and adds a speed element to any team with the ball. I have no idea how good he's going to look after 2 quad tears. I mean, that is unprecedented in injury history, but any sort of addition he gives the Heat, I mean, that's huge midseason. And, to credit the Heat, we talked a lot about Durant. Like, they're playing on a back-to-back without Jimmy and Kyle Lowry to be able to beat the Nets with Kevin Durant is just super impressive. They just keep rolling no matter who they have. So to be getting more reinforcements 1 month before the playoffs, I mean, it's hard not to really like where the Heat are headed right now.
Big game Saturday night between the Sixers and the Heat. That's must watch. That's Saturday night entertainment.
I can't wait to see that. I think that's the best opponent they've played by far since Harden joined the Sixers. So that'll be a very interesting game for both of those teams, really, to see kind of where they're at.
100%. You get the sense that they were resting Jimmy Butler and PJ Tucker tonight in advance of that game. It was also the fifth game in 7 nights for Miami too, so that's part of it too. Meanwhile, the Chicago Bulls, they lose 3 straight games tonight, and things are not getting easier for the Bulls anytime soon. We'll talk about that next. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Built Bar. And look, I know you've heard us talking about Built Bars a lot, how they're covered in 100% real chocolate, they're low in carbs, they're low in calories, high in protein, bunch of flavors. Look, I'm just going to go off script here because I just want to say that I've been looking and experimenting with different protein bars for a really, really long time before Built Bar partnered with us. And I've got to say that these are hands down my favorite protein bar. I seriously have tried all of them. Any protein bar that you've tried, I've tried them. And Built Bars are my favorite. They taste great, but others taste great too, not going to lie. But what I like about Built Bars is that the macros are unbeatable and they don't make me feel gross after I eat them. Some of these chemically ones just don't sit right with you. Others make me too full or even feel bloated. Built Bars seriously taste great. They give me the protein and the energy that I need throughout the day, and I feel good after I eat them. Go to built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You're going to be blown away. High protein, low calories, high in fiber, low in carbs. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. And they have great flavors: mint brownie, coconut, coconut almond, and new this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. If you think any flavor might be good, they'll make it. It will be delicious, and it will be good for you, and it'll make you feel good. At Built Bar, they are all about taste. They make it taste delicious first, then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every single time. So here's the offer. Go to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off on your order. Again, use that promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. If you haven't tried them, try them. All right, back here with Locked On NBA. I'm Wes Goldberg here with Tony East. When you're done listening to us here, go check out the Locked On Now podcast. Local experts on the biggest stories every single night. Let's go to the Hawks and the Bulls. Led by Trae Young's 39 points, the Hawks rallied, beat the Bulls 130 to 124 after Zach LaVine's three put the Bulls up 10 at the start of the third quarter. The Hawks outscored the Bulls 74 to 58 the rest of the way, but Chicago clawed back and had a chance late after Bogdan Bogdanovic's three made it a 119 to 118 lead, but DeMar DeRozan turned it over and then never got a chance to make yet another clutch shot this season in the final seconds. Trae Young's pair of threes ends the game. The Bulls have now lost 3 straight against the Grizzlies, the Heat, and now the Hawks. They've fallen percentage points behind the 76ers in that battle for second place in the East after having been tied for first with the Heat coming out of that All-Star break. Now they're 2.5 games back behind the Heat for first. Tony, are you concerned about Chicago?
Not really. Levine's lingering knee thing makes me a little nervous for them, but they've still played well in that interim. DeMar's had his historic run end and they've lost a few games recently, but no is my answer. I mean, they've bounced back from low points already this season a few times. And quite frankly, like Trae Young's had a really underrated season to me and just had a ridiculous ending to this game, hitting Ayo Dosunmu with a "you can't guard me," which, like, you're Trae Young. You don't have to be picking on rookies in clutch moments, but it was sick. It was a sick shot from Trae. They deserved it in a back and forth game like that. I love heat of the moment plays. So the Hawks is not like a bad loss. They've played tough teams recently. So yeah, losing 3 in a row is never good. Losing your pedestal in a conference is never good, but I'm not really worried. I still think DeRozan, with how he's played this season, and even Levine, limping is the wrong word, but playing worse of late, he still looks really good. Vucevic is still clicking with them at times. I think they'll be fine, but I still don't necessarily believe in them to the extent that I believe in some other Eastern teams.
Yeah, they need to get some dudes back too. But Billy Donovan after the game saying, we've faced some elite competition lately, and some like the Grizzlies and the Heat are elite. I wouldn't quite put Atlanta in that category, but point taken. My problem with Chicago is I've never really believed them as a finals contender anyway, so I don't know what kind of level of concern I should have in the first place, but it does get worse. I mean, we're talking about, like, this is a tough stretch for them. It gets worse before it gets any easier. Next for Chicago is the Milwaukee Bucks and then the Philadelphia 76ers. They get the Detroit Pistons after that, but then another tough game against Cleveland, and then you get another reprieve against Sacramento, but overall, like, the Bulls have the 3rd toughest remaining schedule in the league. So the time to pad the schedule has passed, and they did, right? Like, they had a really great record coming out of the All-Star break, like I said, tied for number 1 spot in the Eastern Conference, but it's not really, I guess, a coincidence that they've started to fall as the schedule has gotten harder. But who knows? When they get healthier, maybe things turn around for them. Let's go to Toronto, where Pistons rookie Cade Cunningham had 22 points and Jeremy Grant scored 26 as the Pistons beat the Raptors 108 to 106. Toronto trailed 91 to 79 going into the fourth of this one. But Precious Achua's three-pointer and Pascal Siakam's driving layup cut the deficit to 2 with a minute remaining, but the Pistons held them off thanks to a big Cunningham block on Gary Trent Jr. and some missed Raptors free throws. A fun ending to this one, Tony.
Yeah, Cade Cunningham was just kind of everywhere when it mattered. Like the Pistons could not get a they were up 8 with about 3 minutes to go. They could not get a bucket when it mattered. Their first bucket comes off of a terribly missed Jeremy Grant jumper that Cade was just Poacher's perfect location for the offensive rebound and bucket. And then you already mentioned it, the game-saving block late in this game, and it was only, I think, a 2-point game at that point. It was a massive block to keep them ahead. And the Pistons tried to give it away, like you said, up 12 going into the fourth, up even more than that in the third quarter when Nick Nurse got ejected, leading the Raptors in this game. So the Raptors claw back without their coach, but Dwayne Casey never loses against the Raptors. It's the darnest thing, even with his crappy Detroit teams. And Cade Cunningham got him over the line in this one.
Yeah, Dwayne Casey, 9 of his last 12 games he's won against the franchise that fired him, the Toronto Raptors. Let's go to Boston, where Jason Tatum scored 21 of his 37 points in the fourth quarter, leading the Celtics past the Grizzlies 120-107. Good win for them. But Memphis pulled within 7 late, and then Jason Tatum hit him with 6 straight to extend the lead to 99-84. Then Tatum scored another 8 straight, including the dagger 3 to put Boston up 15 with a minute and a half to go. John Morant finished with 38 points, but he was 0 for 6 in the first quarter, so a slow start for him. But he ended up scoring 30 points in all in the second half as he tried to keep the Grizzlies afloat. Despite the loss, he did notch another highlight with a one-handed dunk off an alley-oop from Kyle Anderson in the second quarter. That was just nuts. Just add that to another John Morant highlight reel. But Tony, any thoughts on this game?
Al Horford played the best game I've seen from him when watching the Celtics this season. I think that's kind of noteworthy. He had 21 and 15 in this game. Like the Celtics don't need a third star, but especially with Jaylen Brown out, to see a guy like that who has a history of being very good step up and help against a really good opponent is huge for them. And Al Horford was very good in this game. And Nesmith got hurt right at the beginning, the guy filling in as their starter for Jaylen Brown. So to get any production from anyone else on that kind of night is really important. And shutting down Ja early was really helpful too. I think the Grizzlies need to find a little more balance than letting him shoot 29 times sometimes.
Yeah, it's kind of the stat du jour out there right now that Boston's had the number 1 defense in the league since the turn of the calendar, and it's like by miles. But loved what I saw from Boston's defense tonight. Like super impressed. The thing that stands out to me is not obviously the length and just the guys like Marcus Smart who fight over every screen and all that stuff, but they just had scouted the Grizzlies really well. They knew when to go over screens. They knew when to go under. They knew how much space to give other guys. They knew when to crash the boards and try to get defensive and offensive rebounds. Like it's a well-coached defense at the end of the day. And I think that's maybe a little overlooked because we tend to look at their length and their athleticism and all the switching and everything that they do too. In LA, the Clippers blew out the Lakers 132-111 after trailing by 17 early on. The Lakers used a 15-0 run, highlighted by a Russell Westbrook bucket in transition, LeBron getting to the basket whenever he wanted, and then a huge Malik Monk dunk to end the first half. But the Clippers didn't faze them. They opened up the third quarter with a 23-0 run. They outscored the Lakers 40-18 in the third quarter. Reggie Jackson was on a heater. He finished with 36 points. LeBron finished with 26, but both teams rested their key players over the final few minutes because that one was over. And you know what we're going to do, Tony? We're not going to talk about the Lakers today. How about that? Let's just move. Let's move.
You
right along.
You somehow hit all my notes too. I had 5 bullet points down. And you literally hit on every single one, including that Marcus Morris was hot. Shout out to Reggie Jackson for a cool highlight play. Yes. He's not on the Lakers, so I can talk about him. I think he had a sick move on a guy on the team we're not talking about late in the game, right before everybody who was good got pulled because the Clippers were up by so much. He finished plus 44. Huge game from Reggie Jackson. He deserves a little bit of praise.
I didn't even see that plus 44. That's insane. Hit him with like this. Hit Russell Westbrook with this like crazy kind of walking through the French doors type of dribble. I don't even know what was happening.
I've never seen him. I don't know if I've seen a move like that, at least maybe not to that memorable extent. And Russ tried to trip him after he got beat too. So
he was not happy about it.
Yeah, he was not happy about it.
All right, finally, our last game. The Kings beat the Spurs 115-112 in San Antonio. Harrison Barnes scored 27 points. De'Aaron Fox had 26 points and 9 assists, while the Spurs were led by DeJounte Murray's 29, but didn't get much help outside of Murray. The loss keeps Greg Popovich a win shy of tying Don Nelson on the all-time win list. This is the interesting thing from the game. In fact, the Spurs have lost 3 straight games since Popovich reached 1,334 career regular season wins. Like I said, just needs one more to tie Don Nelson. Can't get it, Tony. I don't know what's going on there. Should have been able to beat the
I know what's going on. The Spurs stink. The Spurs are not good. I know exactly what's going on.
All right, coming up, we take a look at some of the craziest stories from the season. But first, let's talk about our friends at BetOnline. Football might be over this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all of your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Not Olympic coverage anymore, people. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. It's BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, it is Friday, so it's time to count down to the weekend. And today, we're doing our top 5 dumbest storylines of the season. The dumbest. It's hard to believe that the regular season is almost over. We're coming down the final stretch here, Tony. So we decided to take a look back at some of the weirder / crazier / nonsensical stories and narratives from the season. So, Tony, we're going to rank our top 5 from 5 to number 1. What is number 5 on your list?
This is a good time for this power ranking because all the talking head shows on TV, it's too early to start talking about the NBA playoffs, but the trade deadline's over. So they're just talking about nothing. I mean, this is where like the fate of the universe Iguodala quotes come from this time of season.
Yeah, no, Stephen A. and Mad Dog Russo on First Take were debating like a shot for your life. Who would you take, Larry Bird or Steph Curry? That's the point of the NBA season we're in right now.
Yeah, we'll get close to the playoff seeding battles and all that stuff when it'll be clearly relevant stuff. But this is the time of the year when stupid takes are flying and reviewing the 5 dumbest from this year. I didn't really know where to start. I actually had to tell Wes before this. I picked 6, but we already mentioned this one, so I'll put it first. There was this stretch where Ja Morant got hurt this season, and the Grizzlies won like 6 games in a row right after, and people were saying, are the Grizzlies better without Ja Morant? What? No, the Grizzlies are not better without Ja Morant. I can't believe that came out of someone's mouth.
Ja Morant is now like top 3, 4 in the MVP conversation now. The fact that they could be better. I think maybe, look, you can figure stuff out when a player gets hurt and you can figure out how to survive without that player. And maybe you start to, what's that necessity is the mother of invention or something like that. That makes sense, but once Ja got back, the defense was still awesome. And the offense was great because it was Ja Morant. Yeah, that was crazy that we even had that conversation. And by the way, that's such a dumb storyline because there might be voters who remember that and hold it against Ja Morant when it comes to MVP voting. Here's just like a PSA to anybody who has a vote listening. Like, that doesn't matter. Do not consider that when you are making your MVP decisions. That does not matter. That should not be a factor in this. What's number 4, Tony?
Number 4. From you in our aggregate list discussion before, my childhood favorite team, so I was all over these narratives. The Wizards were really good for a hot second to start this season. And Bradley Beal wasn't even playing in every game at the beginning of the season. Spencer Dinwiddie looked pretty good. They had Bertans actually helping them and playing well. And everybody thought, wow, maybe trading Russ means the Wizards are going to be good this year. Yeah. Wow, were they wrong? The Wizards now have tumbled in the East down to 11th out of the play-in race, 2 games behind the Hawks for that final play-in spot. They're okay, but Beal's hurt now. It's hard to assess their season. But look, everybody knew they weren't just magically better all of a sudden early in the season. They won every close game they played in, no matter what, barely. They were getting career nights from random guys all the time. Kuzma, who still looks good, but was playing out of his mind at that time of the year. The Wizards are not good.
No. They started 11-5. Everybody's doing the are they good thing. Yeah, and it turns out Kyle Kuzma is not an all-star. He's good, not an all-star. Yeah, this was like one of those rare trades where I think both teams lost terribly in that deal, right? Like, I think if both teams could go back and not do the trade, I think they would. I don't know. Maybe the Wizards wouldn't. Yeah, the Wizards probably still do it, but I don't like the Wizards. they made the push at the end of last season with Russell Westbrook and without Bradley Beal. They've been
Yeah,
with and without Beal for a while now, and they don't have that guy. So I don't know. I feel like
Ku-
neither team got better after that trade.
this wasn't part of this discussion, but Kuzma alone is why I think the Wizards
Yeah.
do it. Like Aaron Holiday's already off their team, KCP. Like, you're not going to beat yourself up over losing KCP, but Kuzma being like legitimately okay this year,
Yeah.
actually pretty good for them, I think, is the reason they would not undo that trade. This one I almost put up higher, but for number 3 for me, especially because this team, like you mentioned, best defense in the NBA since January 1st. There's a lot of talk early January when the Celtics were about 500. Should they split up Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum? A spoiler alert for anyone who covers a team with 2 really good players that are 25 years old. You do everything except for that when you're trying to build a title contender.
Yeah, and now we're starting to see maybe that storyline reemerge with conversations around the Lakers, who I swore we wouldn't talk about, but here we are. Like, if they're going to try to blow it up like completely and maybe like completely reshape the roster around LeBron and trade Anthony Davis, do you trade him to Boston in a package for Jaylen Brown? Would the Celtics even do that at this point? Which is kind of a crazy thought to have, considering that we were having this we weren't, but people were having this conversation about just trading Jaylen Brown anyway earlier in the year for what? Ben Simmons? Like, that was sort of the name. That was crazy. I would much rather have Anthony Davis, but at this point, I might just pick Jaylen Brown over all these guys. I don't know. What's the next one?
Yeah, Jaylen Brown, excellent player. Fits very well with Tatum. And the one ball thing is stupid. There's like a million possessions a game. It's not like they can't not play together. There are a couple more we could do, but a big one was early this season, the Warriors, when they were kicking butt and their defense was first by a mile. Everybody was doing the same thing they do in the playoff apology mode for the Warriors too. Steph Curry, awesome defender all of a sudden.
That was crazy.
Yeah, it's all Draymond for me. When the Warriors play good defense, it's all Draymond. But
that was a real storyline. I get, like, look, I covered the Warriors for 2 years, and I understand there's only so many ways that you could talk about a greatness, right? Like, how many more things can you say about greatness? And I get that. But I think I would need to draw the line at the point of, you know what? Steph, actually a pretty good defender. And I'm like, no, he's not. You're like he knows where to be, but can we just like not do the whole Steph is act? Like, there were people being, well, maybe you could, make, all NBA defense or something. Like, what are we talking about? This is Steph Curry. He guards like the worst player on the other team every single night, which is a great idea because he's not that great of a defender. He's fine. He's gotten better since, he got destroyed in the finals by LeBron and Kyrie Irving a few years ago. He's certainly better. But let's not start talking about him being a great defender. That was a little crazy to me.
I have just the word Ben Simmons here. It's not really narrative for him, though. This isn't. I feel like this isn't the point of the.
So glad
exercise.
This one's over.
Yeah, it's just the constant twice a month update of like he still hasn't practiced, and they said the same thing to the Sixers again. It's like, this isn't an update. This is stupid. This is a waste of time. That wasn't a narrative. I don't think that fits this criteria.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of uncomfortable with the conversation around like the mental health stuff and everything and what we didn't know and what we thought we knew and everything like that. I'm just glad that it's well, I don't even know if it's over, right? Because we still haven't seen him play. So
yeah.
Maybe it's still not over. I don't know.
I think number 1, I can't believe I forgot this, Wes Goldberg suggestion. Perfect dumb thing that was said and a perfect scapegoat situation. The person who said the scapegoat thing is fired, and the other person who said a scapegoat thing is not playing for a crappy team in the Western Conference. The thing you specifically mentioned to me was the Blazers looking completely different, as Damian Lillard said, by hiring Chauncey Billups to be their head coach instead of Terry Stotts. Let's also talk about, in general, their old GM, whose name is escaping me for some reason, firing Terry Stotts at all, thinking that was the problem with this team. Everything the Blazers did to try, Neil O'Shea, thank you, to try to build their team this year just was a farce to me. It was a complete mess.
This is kind of why I want to do the exercise. It's kind of, it's fun to sort of just go back and think about what we were talking about and thinking about and looking forward to early in the season. This was sort of before the season. Remember all those reports, Damian Lillard might be asking out for a trade, all these things. And, he came back and denied that flatly. And that's sort of where we started getting these quotes. We're going to look great under Chauncey Billups. I'm super confident in him and all this stuff. And you know what? Damian Lillard was right. They are going to look completely different because they ended up trading all of their players. And now they have a bunch of new players. And Damian Lillard is not playing for them right now. So, he was right. They do look completely different.
I didn't even realize that. Maybe that narrative was correct all along, and we're not giving them enough credit. Yeah, they're 28th in defense this season under Chauncey Billups. I believe that was a big part of the push of Billups's appeal, was that he would fix their defense. They were 29th in defense last year, so I suppose they're one jump in rankings is what they were referring to.
Like every year, I think we have like this Twilight Zone team where you just sort of like look around and you're like, wait, what happened here? Like it wasn't like this like a second ago. And this year, it's definitely the Portland Trail Blazers. Like everything that's happened in Portland, it's just like completely Twilight Zone-y. They're the Twilight Zone team of the season. All right, that is. You got anything else?
No, I have no idea what happens next for them. I mean, they have Dame and a bunch of rebuilt pieces and an interim GM. I mean, they are a fascinating next couple months kind of team.
Yeah, Knicks fans think they're getting Damian Lillard. That is a wrap for us and for the week. Remember to subscribe to new episodes of Locked On NBA wherever you listen to podcasts for 30 minutes of the NBA's top stories every day. In the meantime, you can find me over at Locked On Heat and Tony over on Locked On Pacers. Thank you for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all of your gambling needs. It's free and it's available on all platforms.